Greetings, I'm Tantus now of Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time to continue our talking about anime series and then using them in your BESM world. Of course, I've been talking about other things than anime series too, but today it's more anime. It's the three anime I talked about in the last episode, One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. So let's just dive right into it and start talking about using One Piece in your BESM game. So, I would assign your character 250 to 800 points. Now, why the wide variety? Like many of these animes, all three of these animes I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of episodes in them. There's a lot of arcs of storyline. And there's a lot of places where you can bring your characters into. I would recommend if you're starting out at the basics, that you're having some kind of new fledgling crew, I would go for the 250. But anywhere you want to add people in along the basic storyline or sort of the basic timeline, you could do more points, all the way up to 800. 800 is sort of the top end, which I'm recommending for maybe around where they are now, or even beyond there, like if you wanted to go something beyond where people are in the manga and the anime. Now that we've talked about the point discretion, let's talk about the world itself. I would recommend that you avoid doing what the anime has done. You could very easily make your people members of one of the crews of one of the famous pirates, or like you could have them in the Straw Hats, or anything like that. You could have them in the Navy. But for best bet, I think to recommend to make it you have a pirate crew. Now, how dark your pirate crew goes, how much of it's the fanciful version of pirates or more realistic version of pirates, completely up to you. But always have this little lighthearted comedic element into it that kind of breaks it from the darkness that more realistic pirates might be anyway. So have your characters build a crew of pirates. You might want to flesh it out with some NPCs. You might just want some generic pirate crew members if you think you need them, or you might want some other NPCs that would fill out whatever ranks they need in their group. And of course, they discuss amongst themselves who's going to be the captain, who's going to be the first mate, who's going to be this, who's going to be that. Maybe you want a navigator, maybe you want a ship's doctor, ship's cook, all these other things. All these other roles that would appear on the ship. You could try to mimic the roles that have appeared in the anime, or come up with some ones that you think would be important on your own. Now, of course, you can also choose whether any of your people in your team have Devil's Fruit powers, or if they don't. Maybe one of your people wants to have it, and you can talk to them about having that power and developing abilities around it. Another person might just want to be a really great, powerful character. Zoro, for example, he's just a great sword fighter and keeps learning sword fighting techniques, but he gets some ridiculous ones, and eventually he starts using haki. Haki is something that I think you could have people unlock later on anyway. There are characters that are just more realistic characters that just gain abilities based on what their specialization was. You just don't need to be a Devil's Fruit power to have really awesome characters built in One Piece. So let's move on. Let's talk about Naruto. Now for Naruto, I would recommend between 200 and 700 points. Again, this is depending on where you are in the storyline. 200 would be if you're starting out in a classroom setting, in the school setting, while on the other hand, 700 might be if you're diving right into the War of the Ninja at the end of the series. At that point in time, you need to be very powerful. On the other end, you need to be very weak down here, especially if you're kind of making your characters be more main characters. People aren't matching Naruto, they aren't matching Sasuke, but they might match some of the other characters in there, which become very powerful in their own rights. Naruto's very good at making their side characters not fall behind so much, that they can kind of generally keep up with the power level of everyone else there. Granted, they sort of have deficiencies between each other, but that happens. So wherever you decide to put it, make your characters become sort of team. Now normally it's a three-man team is sort of the traditional way, but for whatever reason you could have more characters in that team. Maybe you're just making it that for whatever excuse there is more characters in it, more than if you just had 3 players. It's up to you how you want to handle that, but you could definitely make it that maybe it's an experimental group that for some reason this team has more members. Now you could again start out very simply in the school, you could have them graduate, you could have them go on basic exams, basic missions, you could have them do things that might relate to the storyline of the world. It depends on, again, when you're putting them in the timeline, so to say. Again, you could also put it in the timeline after the war in sort of the new generation too, which is just they're doing materials for now. There was the one movie and the manga that's ongoing right now. It's the same world, it's just in a different sort of timeline. Almost when we're getting a more modern take to this timeline, where it feels a lot more like modern technology than it did in, let's say, the original one, which has very mixture of modern technology and very not uses that you'd think they would have of modern technology. That's sort of they show certain things in technology, but yet they don't use certain things. It's an interesting mixture. So again, I would make sure your people have a team. I may put an NPC instructor as their leader, possibly, or if you want to sort of push it forward a little farther in time, give them a few more points, you could have one of them assigned as the leader if that character has skills that might reflect being a leader more than others. You, of course, could have some kind of competition between all the characters to see who would be the leader, and it would be judged on more than just who beats who kind of thing. It might be judged on a lot of different things. Like, for certain reasons, certain characters become leaders and others don't really. In the series, even, too. So let's move on. Let's talk about Bleach. I would put them like the 350 to 850, depending on, again, the arc you choose to be in. The power ratings sort of shift wildly between some of the arcs there, and that's why I kind of have put this very large, again, a large sort of set to look into for these different things. That you're looking at this wide range arc of power that you could possibly have for your characters. You could have all your characters Shikigami. It's completely up to you. You could have a team of Shikigami doing missions based around maybe defeating hollows, going and dealing with things based around hollows. You could have maybe that, you know, one of them might aim to becoming a captain eventually. I would say that they're not captains or vice captains to begin with if you're doing that, but they're becoming elite, and they're working towards that. You could center around that very easily. Or I kind of would recommend maybe you follow the Ichigo route, I would call it, where you have one person that might be the Shikigami and other people that have other abilities. You might have one person that's a Quincy to match like what the anime would have, or a couple of people that would be Quincy's, and maybe a couple of people that represent other sort of things. Like Chad has his powers, or Hime has her powers. You could have more than one Shikigami in the group. You could have one that's more the substitute, like Ichigo is, and one that's a normal one, like Rukia is. I think that kind of team dynamic would be more interesting, and then you could do things similar to what the anime is without having to mimic it, that maybe you could deal with some of the similar problems, or the problems of things going on in the anime will eventually reflect back on this group that might be in somewhere else in the world. So this group of people here, very similar to the other group of people in the actual anime, has similar adventures and problems, and reflects whatever is going on in the main storyline in their little world too, and you can make storylines based upon that. I think that would be a lot more interesting to go than going to just traditional, we're Shikigami, we're training, we're unlocking things like our abilities and possibly our Bankai to eventually battle out, you know, hollows and more powerful versions of themselves. That's also interesting, but it's sort of like a mixture of what you feel is best for your character group and whatever storyline you think you're developing. So that's it for today. I've talked about using these three fairly famous and popular animes in your BESM games. I gave you little tips and hints about it, depending on where you want to go in their storylines and their power arcs, how you want to develop using their world. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave it in the comments below. Please like this video. It shows your support for the channel, for the Empire. Please subscribe if you already haven't. We're always looking for more members, more citizens. Please share this video if you know anybody that would enjoy this or would learn anything from this. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.